Meeting. Committee members present, President Kuchmarek, Councilor Joseph, Councilor Donnelly, and Councilor Beazall. We also present this evening, Councilors Clark and Boschman. We will start with 275-16, in order that the City of Fitchburg accepts the gift of $5,000 from Rollstone Bank and Trust given and to be used for the betterment and safety of all Fitchburg police officers. Chief Martineau.
Evening, councilors. I ask you to support Order 275-16. The Fitchburg Police Department was given a $5,000 donation from Rollstone Bank and Trust, and when I spoke to the representatives from Rollstone, they were looking to provide something for the Fitchburg police officers, something that could increase their safety for the betterment of the police officers, and they asked me to look for a project that could specifically do that. One area that we've always been behind in is we require our police officers to buy their own duty flashlights. And with this opportunity, gracious gift from Rollstone Bank, I'm able to go out and supply every member of the Fitchburg Police Department with the state-of-the-art flashlight that they can carry on duty. So I'd like to publicly thank Rollstone Bank and Trust for this donation. It's going to go a long way, and it's going to provide safety for the Fitchburg police officers while they're on duty. And I hope you can support this gift. Thank you.
I think I speak for everybody on the committee and the council in thanking Rollstone Bank and Trust for their generous donation to our public safety personnel. Councilor Beazall.
Thank you. I was just going to echo the same thing and just thank them for that. And whenever we can help our police officers as far as safety goes, we need to do it. So thank you.
Motion to approve 275-16.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to approve 275-16. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It is unanimous. Thank you.
If you would want to take it out of order, I have one other item on.
That's right. Last one.
Yes, order number 279-16.
279-16, in order that the City of Fitchburg hereby approves the expenditure of funds from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Executive Office of Public Safety and Security, Highway Safety Division for the Police, GHSB FY17 grant in the approximate amount of $12,000 for the purposes of said grant.
Thank you. Once again, councilors, in reference to Order 279-16, Fitchburg Police Department has historically participated in the Governor's Highway Safety Bureau grant program. These funds allow the Fitchburg Police Department to participate in statewide traffic safety mobilizations. Some examples of these mobilizations, you may have heard them before: the Click It and Ticket campaign, Drive Sober or Get Pulled Over, and there's two other traffic initiatives that we take part in. During these mobilizations periods, we're able to hire police officers in overtime to specifically go out and participate in these traffic proactive measures. The days, the weeks, the times of these deployments, they're all determined by the analysis of our data that's provided through our crime analysis. We will take part, if this is proved, we will take part in 4 mobilizations during this upcoming year. Each mobilization will consist of $3,000. In total, it's a $12,000 grant that is overseen by the Executive Office of Public Safety in Boston. And like I said, we've been doing this historically for several years.
Questions? Councilor Joseph.
That's great. Is this crosswalks too? Is that one of
That's
the...
part of, yeah.
Okay, the third one. All right, and is the recent roadblocks that we see over on Water Street at night, are those state police run for the most part?
You're talking about the most recent roadblock? Yes, that was a state police operation. You may have saw it advertised. They won't advertise the exact location, but the state police, when they do a sobriety checkpoint like that, they advertise before it actually happens, but that was a state police operation.
Okay, because I ran into one also on my way home from work one night at the same spot. So they're getting kind of predictable as to where they're going. So
it's a little different. The state police aren't. They don't fall under this Governor Highway Safety. They have their own avenue of support. But part of our deployments is specifically targeted towards detection of intoxicated drivers.
Good. I'm glad to hear it.
Councilor Boschman.
On this grant, are we going to also target people that jaywalk downtown?
We do crosswalk stings. We did that last year. We targeted jaywalkers last year. We targeted crosswalk violations Right now, for the next month, as soon as this is approved, we're going to start tackling increased drunk driving patrols, especially with the New Year's coming during the month of December and January. Right, try to focus on that. Obviously, like I said, a lot of it depends on our crime analysis. We try to go where the data tells us to go.
You all set, Counselor? Are you all set, Counselor?
Yeah, oh, yeah, thank you. Sorry
Counselor
about that.
Joseph?
Just a quick, I mean, what about, I don't know what purview it comes out of, or if we have to do something. How would we go about doing something with people that are going through yellow and red lights? I mean, is there something that we can do? Is there a program that we can start or something just to get people more aware of the dangers of going through yellow and red
We could.
lights?
I would ask for some specific locations. We've tried to do proactive patrols, for instance, at Main and Day Street, where there's a lot of confusion on left-hand turns versus no turns. We try to attack, based on what the citizens are telling us. If there's an issue with red lights versus yellow lights in the specific intersections, absolutely, we can address that as well.
Water in Bemis, water in Winoosknock. I mean, it's just that light turns and 5 cars just keep going through. So it's just...
The thing to understand with this EOPS grant is very specific
Okay.
on what we can tackle with it. And I think we're very fortunate. This is just another $12,000 that is not included in our overtime budget, allows me to put out a significant amount of patrols. So it's these little grants. They might not seem a lot, but if you start adding them up, they really it reduces my overtime.
Yeah. Okay, thanks, sorry.
Counselor Donnelly?
Thank you. I'm all for the grants and educating drivers, and we watched the stings on Main Street a few years ago. Is there any way to educate pedestrians? Is there any enforcement that could be done? I mean, there's certain neighborhoods you would think there are no sidewalks, even in the summer when they're clear. It's just very frustrating to have to, it's always going to be the driver's fault. Any way to do anything about jaywalkers, the middle of the street, the wrong side of the street? Is any of that part of the program?
Not this program
okay.
specific. You're going to see some things in this upcoming year with the grant that we're operating under and having specifically designated officers in the downtown area. You're going to see an increase in that. And, there's things that we can do. We can do campaign signs. We can use billboards talking about jaywalking, about the pedestrian safety. Things have slowed down on Main Street. We're in the middle of our winter months, but that's something that we would be interested in looking at.
Thank you. Make a motion to approve?
Second.
Motion made and seconded to approve 279-16. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It is unanimous. Thank you, Chief.
Councilors.
Moving on to 276-16, order that the City of Fitchburg hereby approves the expenditure not to exceed $11,000 from Cemetery Perpetual Care for the rental of a bulldozer and drainage for the new expansion in Section Q. I don't see anybody here specifically representing this order, but I have the letter submitted from the Cemetery Superintendent Jacqueline Poirier, dated November 18th, 2016. Dear Mayor DiNatale, I am requesting your approval of the following expenditure at the regular meeting of the Cemetery Trustees held on Thursday, November 17th. The following motion was adopted by a vote of 5 in favor and 0 opposed. 5 board members were present. A motion was made and seconded to allow an expenditure from Perpetual Care expendable interest account not to exceed $11,000 for the rental of a bulldozer for 2 weeks and drainage for the new expansion in Section Q. 5 in favor, 0 opposed. Motion passed. Upon your approval, please pass on to the Finance Committee. Thank you. Council Beazle.
Thank you. I'm in favor of this. The only question I really had on it, and I guess I'll ask Lenny about it, is renting a bulldozer. I don't know if do we have our own bulldozer, or is it, wouldn't know why we're renting a bulldozer, but that would be my only question. But I'll certainly approve this tonight and find out what.
Mr. Saracen, do you happen to know what's in that account?
No, I don't have it with me. I think it's probably $50,000 that's in interest. There's over $1 million that is invested.
Yep.
So,
Motion to approve 27616.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to approve 27616. Speaking on the motion, Counsel Donnelly.
I just had a comment on a bulldozer. I mean, just because you have a bulldozer, there's, 23 different sizes. I would think that if they had one that was the correct size, they'd use it, but different sizes for different operations.
Motion made and seconded to approve 27616. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It is unanimous. 27716, order that there be and hereby is appropriated $20,000, same to be credited to building repair and care, tax possession and charge against available funds. Treasurer Brooks and Commissioner of Building Lanciani.
Excuse me. Thank you, councilors. The original appropriation for this line item was $10,000. This is an item where the money is used to maintain the tax possessions that the city is acquiring as we go through land court tax foreclosures. It can be used for anything from boarding up buildings, securing buildings, changing locks, cleaning out buildings. The $10,000 that we had has been used up on some of the properties that we have acquired, and so I've asked, along with the building commissioner, for another $20,000. I do expect that we'll be getting more properties coming into our possession over the coming months, and we'll need to use it. And it's just a way of quickly securing these properties so they don't lose value as we hold on to them.
Counsel Beazle.
Thank you. So I know that we have some properties that we're going to be auctioning.
Correct?
When those properties are auctioned off, do those funds go into the general account, or can they go into to replace some of the funds that you've actually had to use to go?
They have to go into the regular accounts.
Okay, so they have to go into.
They're considered revenue, and it's basically replacing tax revenue that we would have gotten if the taxes had been paid. So they have to show as revenue.
All right. So basically speaking, if once we get that money in from the auctions, it sits there and then you would have to come again before us if you needed more funds for this.
Right. If we spent this 20, I'd be coming back, or I'd be asking the mayor for more.
Okay. Thank you.
Counsel Kuchmarek. President Kuchmarek.
Gentlemen, is this all used for materials? Does this reimburse our building department, or is this done through contracted services?
So far this year, the building department has spent $11 of that money on locks and that type of material. We spent $2,145 on Walnut Street because there was broken pipes and a sewage problem that needed to be addressed immediately. The balance of it has been spent on D&D waste, removing the trash that was left behind in the buildings and securing the buildings that they have cleared out of.
So the D&D waste, is that bringing the contractors in to remove the waste, or is that simply for the dumpsters?
They're coming in and removing the waste.
In terms of kind of perpetual care of these properties, because I realize some can be held by the city for a while until they're then put up for auction. Does it make more sense? I mean, Duffy, I know your staff is at a premium for you, and you could certainly reallocate them elsewhere. Does it make more sense for us to be using your staff for this, or does it make more sense for us to be contracting with a company to kind of maintain these until they're ready for auction?
We don't have the resources to maintain them. The building department has been doing things, and it doesn't even show on this because we've taken it out of just paying my employees out of our accounts. But they've been installing smoke detectors and locks and securing buildings. When we go find a window broken out, we just deal with it. We're not addressing it with going after this account. This is the big ticket items that are beyond what we have an ability to do.
So certainly, I don't want to hold these funds up. I know they're sorely needed to take care of these properties. I guess my ask would be, over the next several months, can we take a look, and perhaps the mayor's office could take a look and see, does it make more sense for us to look at a year-long contract with a company to maintain these, so that we're not pulling precious staff away from the building department who could be doing site inspections and working on any number of citations throughout the city, who are also generating revenue. Does it make more sense for us to look elsewhere at a third party who might be who might have more resources? It may cost us more, but in terms of powers, it might be well worth our time to investigate that. So I guess I would certainly have my support now, but moving forward before we go into budget season, I guess I'd like to know that we've explored some alternatives. Thank you.
Council Joseph.
Would you say we're on the backside of tax possession properties, or are we on the beginning of tax possession properties? Are we going to get to an end point where we're doing maybe one a year, as opposed to something that we should be looking at a line item in the budget to do this every year instead of?
When I started 3 years ago, there were 600 tax title accounts, meaning 600 properties that were in tax title. Last I checked, it's closer to 500. So it's come down, but there's still a long way to go. And I think on some of this to me, with this request and so on, we're kind of at the end of a first cycle through foreclosing and selling and disposing of properties. And I think we're going to have more going forward, and I'm hopeful that the next time around it'll run more smoothly because we've ironed out the bugs. Whether that's finding, contracting out some of the work, or having some things ready to go when we do take possession of property.
So my question is, should we be budgeting for this in the future because it's now become part of our normal business routine?
I think so, and I think initially we budgeted, we threw a $10,000 figure in there just to have a figure in there to see what it was going to cost. And I think by the end of or later in this year, we'll have a better handle on what an annual cost could be.
And are we going to have an idea after this one how long we keep properties that we've taken tax possession of?
Yeah, I think ideally we want to turn them over. If they're properties we want to sell,
right,
then I think we want to turn them as quickly as we can, but as profitably as we can too. And so some of that requires us to secure the property. The basics of shutting off the water and the electric, draining the pipes, securing the building, those kinds of things. But then there are other issues that may come up along the way, such as emptying it out.
As Councilor Di Natale said only 1 week ago, we make crappy landlords. The city does not make good landlords. So if we're going to be in this business of flipping houses on a constant basis, I think we should be looking at a strategy to do it.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't see it as being in the business of flipping houses, although I understand the point. I don't remember ever really this is kind of a proactive approach here, in that we have all of these properties in tax title. We unfortunately obtain possession of them because the previous owner of these properties reneged on their responsibilities to maintain their properties and pay their bills. But I agree that as soon as we clean them up and we secure the title, we need to put these out to auction as fast as we can. Because the concern in the past has been the longer we hold on to these, the more money it's going to cost for us to maintain them, and that's what I don't want to have happen. I would prefer we spend money to maintain them in preparation for selling them, to make them more lucrative to a future buyer, which I believe that's the onus of this. So to me, this is a good expenditure as long as it doesn't continue in perpetuity for the same properties. I mean, it's one thing to do it for a certain set of properties and they go away, Okay, now we got the next 10 to 20. I mean, unfortunately, you just said there's over 500 of them. So this is a necessary evil, I guess, for tax money. But yeah, I don't want to hold on to them any longer than we have to. So we need to make sure we mitigate that. Councilor Boschman?
Calvin?
Yes, sir.
Well, first of all, if we're gonna auction off these buildings, why are we cleaning them out? Really, because that's the way I understand, when you have an auction, you're right here, you looked at the building, you're not taking a house tour. You're outside and you're bidding on a building and you're buying it as is. That's number one. Number two, if we're boarding up the buildings and then we're going to auction them off, basically, there's a lot of houses that are similar to Windsor Heights. How come if we're going to auction them off, we don't take the wood off and say, you got to supply your own wood now so we can use it for Paul Boschman's house over here to save costs? But the biggest thing, why are we cleaning them? Because when I bought a house on the bank, I had to clean it.
Okay.
I got what I got, and that was it.
To answer you, and I'm going to use this as a segue into my advertisement, if I may, for the auction we have going on Friday, because we've got public auction of tax possession properties on Friday, and there are 10 parcels that we're auctioning. 4 of them have buildings on them. 2 are single family, 2 are 2-family properties. When we took possession and I went into these properties, I was appalled at how filthy they were. There was one house that had, as I understand it, there was a grandmother, a mother, and a child living in this house. This was the house that had the split sewer in the basement and issues with sewer backup in the basement. And just the smell in the house and the trash and stuff that was left there was appalling. And to think that children were living there was and so to make the property a little more appealing to a possible buyer, we cleaned it out. The sewer issue we had to deal with, that was a health and safety issue. But the trash that was in there, we just emptied it out. So whoever's looking at it is at least looking at what I asked for was broom swept rooms. There's still a lot of work to do on these properties. They probably are all going to require new roofs, wiring, heating, plumbing, that kind of work. But to at least have the trash out of there allows people who are coming in to look at it and see what they can see beyond the trash to see what the building is. And I think it's a good money spent, because cleaning out these properties cost us anywhere from $850 up to $4,000, depending on the property and how much trash there was. But if that adds $10,000 to a selling price, we've made our money back. Is how I look at it. They are going to need some work. I have one property on Westminster Hill Road that has a house on it that's probably a tear down, but it is on 2 acres, so there's some possibility of somebody putting a nice home there and having some acreage, and then 5 other just vacant land parcels.
So, no, I heard Duffy, the building inspector, say that we're going in there, we're changing the locks, and we're putting smoke detectors in too. And I said to myself, what? We're putting the stuff in, but what for if the property is empty and we're telling the people they have to leave,
right,
and it's empty?
If the property's vacant, we're not doing the smoke detectors. If there are people living there and we get in there and there's no smoke detectors, we have to do something.
We can't evict them right away? You just said the woman was living in filth. So basically it's a health hazard, so we move them out and we don't fix it. We pay the $1,000 to put them into another location, and that's it, and we get away with it cheap. And let Paul Boschman come in, because I'm going to buy the house cheap. Right. Even if you give me a house tour and it's clean, I'm not going to spend any more money than I have to.
But if we move you out of I believe, and I may be wrong because I'm not the health person, I believe if we order someone out because of health issues, we are subject to having to find a place for them to stay for a short period of time and compensating them for that. So as long as they're when we take possession of a property, whoever is there is considered an occupant of the property, not a tenant, and they're not squatting because they've been living there. They're just an occupant, and we ask them to leave and then start proceedings in housing court to get them out and get some kind of agreement to get them out. So it might take, if they can move quickly, they could be out in a couple of weeks. Sometimes it takes a couple of months to get people out. But if they're living there and there's no smoke detectors, we have to do something to make it safe.
But if we take possession of the property, and I don't want to hold up the question, the thing, aren't they, now they're squatters because basically we took possession. They're no longer, they're underneath the old regime.
Right.
And we're the new regime, so basically they're squatters.
They're considered occupants, not squatters, so.
So just for the public's edification.
Yep.
We take the property into tax title. That's a whole laborious process on your office's part. Once we secure title to the property, we are now the owner of the property.
Correct.
If there is an occupant living in that property, we give them notice that we want them to vacate. But if it can't happen that fast through land court, and there is a noticeable public health hazard in that property, we are liable to make sure that nothing happens in that property while we own it. For fear if there's a fire and someone gets killed or people get killed or property damage to that house or other houses, we're now responsible because we've taken possession of the property, albeit hopefully for not that long. This money is being used to, I don't want to use the word beautify, but to ready it for sale. And if we don't do anything with these properties, in my opinion, someone's going to come in and buy them for $1. And there's no guarantee they're going to do anything with it. Whereas maybe if we make it a little more suitable to someone to buy, we can recoup some of our money back, if not all of it, or plus some. I see this as a preemptive measure that they're taking on. We are now the owners of the property. We don't want to be the owners of the property, but we have no choice. This is money used to secure the building, to make it somewhat suitable for those that are living in it currently, albeit temporarily, and for someone to buy it in the future. Because we see abandoned buildings throughout the city that the city owns, and what is a frequent concern of residents in those affected neighborhoods? They don't like the way the building looks. They think they rightfully believe it depresses the values. So we're trying to mitigate that as best we can. And I believe this is all temporary. I mean, these properties that go on to auction, how fast do the auctions take place once this clears title? We take title. Do we just cherry pick properties that we own to be auctioned, or
yes?
Okay.
We are taking the better properties. There are 2 properties we own which are on the current demolition list. There's another 5 properties that we've taken since we established the auction list that are probably going to be demolition because of, or I can't say they will be, but they're more than likely to be. If a property is likely to be demolished, we're not doing anything other than securing the property, in the sense that if we have to board it up, we're boarding it up. But I don't intend to clean it out or anything. If they're going to demo it, they can demo it with all the trash.
But a demo is far more expensive than $20,000.
Correct. A
So-
demo would be, let's say, $30,000 on it.
Right. So, okay.
Motion to approve 27716.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to approve 27716. Councilor Donnelly?
Thank you. I want to thank Calvin and Duffy. They're both doing a good job. They're doing what they have to do. And I think Calvin has done more tax taking than many of his predecessors over a long period of time. Sometimes the money wasn't funded, so I'm happy about that. Commenting on, there's only one set of rules in housing. It's a state law. The city, once they take the property, has to follow the same rules that every private owner has. You just don't kick somebody out. There's a legal process, there's a notification, time and circumstances are different. One thing that I'm upset about in this coming up, the auction, I'm happy with most of them, but the selection of 21 Goddard Street, it's a 3-family house, on one of the most congested streets in the whole city, And I just had a short chat with Calvin. I've talked to him in the past about this particular house. And the observation from some officials is they looked at the house and it has some parking, which is a lot of the time when the private people come in to buy a house that's been empty for quite some time. I'm looking at the neighborhood. It's one of the most congested. Most of the places have little to no parking. There's barely any houses on the street that have adequate parking according to our zoning. And I'm just looking and saying for the little bit of money, for all the three families, there's a lot of people that talk here about absentee landlords. You'd be hard-pressed to find any owner-occupant in the neighborhood or in that particular stretch. And I don't understand why elected officials and appointed officials in the city that are looking in the best interest of the city would sell a building. I don't care if you get 50,000, and I don't believe you'll get 50. If you put 3 or 4 kids in that, that's 5,000 apiece. It could be 20,000 a year. Multifamily houses do not pay. That's what sucks the lifeblood out of the city. If we had half of the 3 families gone, not all of them, the bad ones, the city would be in substantially better financial shape. In appeal, the city would be better also. So I haven't, on the others, I could go along with it. But this particular one, it's the congested neighborhoods, it's like opening up a sardine can and putting more sardines in. This is the first time that I've seen in such a congested neighborhood. It's one that shouldn't be sold, in my opinion. If you're going to buy a house, when I look at it, I don't look at just the house and what I can do with the house. I look at the whole neighborhood. Is this going to be conducive as a good investment? Now, if someone's going to buy it, you can almost guarantee it's going to be an absentee owner. So this is the only opportunity that I get to publicly speak about this particular house and the way the sale's going. I support the auctions. I support the getting it out of the property committee. But this, I've been watching this for over 40 years. And Fitchburg should be trying to reduce density as often as possible. And if you haven't been on Goddard Street, take a ride by. Thank you.
Motion made and seconded to approve 27716. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It is unanimous. Thank you. Lastly, 27816, in order that there be and hereby is appropriated $5,000, same to be credited to building personal services overtime and charge against available funds. Commissioner?
Councilors, I hoped I never had to be here for this, but in reality, we've spent our overtime budget. We had reduced it this year from anything we had ever had in the past. If I could explain what we've spent it on, just to help you understand, we spent $700+ on overtime. It requests to fix lights and other power and issues within city parks and Old City Hall that was requested to be done on overtime. We spent $1,770 some odd dollars while I was out having my knees replaced, having people work the extra hours because we don't have but 3, myself and 2 inspectors. So the inspectors were working overtime trying to cover my hours. And thirdly, we've had $1,500 plus in expenditures to emergency calls, to fires and other emergencies that building department services were needed at, which has depleted the $4,000 that we had in our budget, which I had hoped would be enough. These are all, the $1,700 from while I was out was nothing I had, anticipated, but was necessary to fund. And the other funds exceeded what we had anticipated. So we've spent our budget, and we've gone to the mayor, and he's supported that we come and ask for more money out of free cash to have any possible overtime covered for the rest of the fiscal year.
Mr. Lanciani, when I see requests like this for such a meager amount, if you will, I ask how we can't possibly absorb this in your existing operating budget. I mean, these requests anywhere that come like this, they tell me that you're going to spend exactly what you're budgeted this year. And I know that's not going to happen, because it never does. So there's nowhere else in your, I mean, I hate to nickel and dime. I'm sure some people in this room are like, what, you know, come on, real, but because if we give you the $5,000, it comes out of free cash. And the argument has always been to me, well, if we don't spend the $5,000, it just becomes free cash next year. To me, that's not the point of free cash. It's, is there a way to look internally first before coming to the reserve account? So I have a hard time believing there isn't some area other than elsewhere in your operating budget you can cover $5,000. Did you not have clerical staff that were out for a couple of months? You couldn't fill the positions? I mean, is there nothing in any of your accounts that you could use to cover this $5,000 without coming to us?
We may be able to cover part of it. I had gone to the mayor and asked for less money than this. The mayor and Dick reviewed my budget, reviewed where we have been, where we're going. They told me that I was not asking for enough. I should be coming for $5,000 and out of free cash, so that there would be sufficient monies in my budget to get us to the end of the fiscal year.
How is there not enough if you haven't had clerical staff, full clerical staff in over 2 months? That's got to be $5,000 right there.
I can answer it.
Okay.
Some of that. Yeah, we go through this process with, typically we'll review the budget within the department for a transfer. A couple things. This request is fairly early in the fiscal year. It's only November. Well, it's December now, but we looked at it, I think, about a couple weeks ago. And yes, there may have been money built up with the clerical, but on the flip side, you may need help for the within that personal services for additional building inspectors when people are on vacation. So we didn't go drill down any further on that. And then on the tax possession, repair and care, as you can see, Calvin and Duffy just came in. They had already spent the $10,000. And that $10,000 was just spent this week, as a matter of fact. So I think if it was May, then we would definitely do the transfer. But rather than squeeze the department right now, the decision was to go in for the overtime. And if it's a transfer for overtime, it has to go to council anyways. Whereas if the clerical money is left over and you have money you need for a assistant inspector, it can be over in one and under in the other. So that's basically it. But I understand your point.
I just, given history.
Just early.
Yeah, I know that's why I'm asking. You're not doing the wrong thing. I'm just, I know this is small dollars. This says to me in blinking red lights that you will be at your budget by the end of the year, which hasn't happened in 9 years.
It hasn't, and I don't anticipate.
I'll be shocked if you come in at budget or within $5,000. Let's just put it that way. Thank you.
I did look at some of it. My plumbing inspector had surgery today. He will be out for, he's estimating 2 weeks.
Okay.
I'll be bringing in a part-time plumbing inspector. I can use the secretary's money to spend on parts. I can't spend it on overtime, but I can move it and pay. I'm anticipating inspectors. I have had to have my retired wiring inspector in on several. I'm looking at, that budget may not be enough, but I can cover that one without coming to you.
Yeah, I know there have been things that have happened this year that were out of the norm. They were not a normal occurrence. I guess just because of the small amount, I just figured maybe save you a trip here. You know, maybe there was a way to absorb it.
I was trying to find one that we could all live with and not be here.
President Kuchmarek.
Mr. Lancia, you had just answered half this question, so I won't belabor this point, but you mentioned, sick leave was part of this, of having to cover those extra hours. You just said there'll be someone out shortly or out currently. Any reason for 5,000 that you anticipate, thinking there's going to be, either another long-term sick leave sick leave for one of your personnel, or any long-term absence of staff that you're going to have to cover staff time for?
I don't see any. Both my knees are working fine. I can't get another one replaced.
Let's hope
I
not.
don't anticipate any other long-term. Early in the year, in July, when I was out, we spent overtime, because the people who were working overtime, they were entitled to overtime money. When I bring in a part-time inspector from another community to fill in for plumbing, wiring, whatever, they're out of a separate account, and I can move from secretary or wiring inspector or whatever in to pay part-timers, but I can't move into and out of overtime without going through the council.
Okay, thank you.
Make a motion to
Motion
approve
approved.
278-16.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to approve 27816. Any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? One in opposition. Passes 4-1.
Sorry.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Motion made and seconded to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you.